Hello everyone. So welcome to this video. I hope you stay until the ending of this video. So what I'll be taking you through today, or what this video is about. So this video is about C#. So I'll be taking you through basic formats of C#, right? And the main thing of this video is to help you understand the basics, right? So the basic, we're going to talk about the syntax. Please do not avoid the syntax and rush to developing huge application. Right? Let's just talk about C#, right? And again, I will be talking about the output, talking about comments, we'll be talking about variables, we'll be talking about data types, typecasting, we'll be talking about the user input, operators, maths, strings, booleans, the operators now again, until we get to arrays. So I'm trying by all means to make this video short and precise. So today we'll be using console application to learn all the basics that I want to talk about today. So meaning that we hope to be learning about a C# syntax. When you be learning about C# syntax, so I'll try by all means to explain in a way that I believe will help you to understand. And if you don't understand, I believe you can just pose a question to the comment section whenever you see it. We'll perhaps make a video explaining what you wanted assistance with, right? Yes, so I want us to first now open up Visual Studio, any version that you have. I don't have any specifics. So I'm using 2026 Community Edition. So I want us now to, once we have Visual Studio, so if you don't know how to install it, I believe there are other videos of how we can install C#, right? So, but on the browser, where you will get the C# installer, which will allow you to now install basic languages. And again, if there are any requests about that, I'll try to pull anyone's videos from YouTube and put it there so that they can show you how we install C#. So let's create a new form, right? So here, let us choose the console application. Please note the language. So let us take the C# application. And also when you're downloading it, you can also take C# application, not Visual Basic. So let's just take console application, and here we can name it, say, basic. Okay, so now we'll be doing the C# basics. Okay, so there will be 01 lesson, I believe lesson 1, and I'll be putting it into my folder. So I've created a folder, if you can see it in the desktop. Inside this folder there is lesson 1, and I've placed that here, so that is fine. So we can continue now. There's nothing to check here. I believe we only have one framework. Now we can now enter the part of explaining the C# lesson. Okay, so let's just clear everything that is here and start from scratch of explaining now everything that is here. Right, so into this video, I believe I think it would be best if you also open up your machine. Maybe if you also want to see other things. Yeah, so I'm not trying to be fast as possible. So most of the time when we start our app, we start with this center, says systems, right? So the main thing about that line, if you can explain that line, I say using systems, a system take it as a pool, right? So we're saying that when you say systems, it's like now a toolbox. So use all the classes under this toolbox. If you want to fix a car, use all the tools that are in this toolbox, right? You may not use all the classes, but certain ones are important. And also in this most of the apps that we're going to be doing in basic, the one most important thing that we'll be using it is print, right? The user input and user output, console write line, and all those that we'll be using. So that is the most important line that we need when we're starting out there. So this actually means that we can use classes from the system namespace. So that there's most of the people when they're programming, they believe that after every syntax you can leave a blank line. So just don't worry because C sharp ignores the white space, right? White space just actually means the line that does not even have anything on it. Okay, yeah, but they say that, however, even if you have multiple codes, multiple lines, basically, they make your code to be clean. Instead of just writing one paragraph of 100 pages, you just write paragraphs, have a one, after every four line, you break it. So say if you have a if statement, break it. If you have one line that is talking a different concept, break it. So others, they say comment every line that you feel like is important, meaning that I can comment that line to say this line is doing this, right? So meaning that we can just start by doing this to talk about another thing now, right? So this actually means that um, we can use classes from the system namespace. Yes, so you see, so we basically talked about comments, we talked about that line, a syntax and a line. So one thing that I also want you to pay attention to is every instruction must end up with this. Every instruction must end with what? This one. So I want you to like to pay much attention because if you understand Java, you definitely understand what we're talking about here, right? So every instruction, you're not talking about methods or anything. Every instruction, console.write line. That is an instruction of telling the computer what to do. So you see line 2 is saying using the system, meaning that the computer must be aware that we have to use the classes from the syntax, right? Sorry about this, from the namespace. So now let's just proceed again to explain. Just want to touch base um, on simple basic now. So now what we're going to be doing now, so the next line here, we can say namespace, right? I'm using a namespace, we specify the name of our project. So let's just say basic, I'll say 01, right? So I just want you to pay attention to something, right? So I can say basic hello world, because I believe everyone has this hello world. Okay, so now after this, if we can explain the namespace. So what is a namespace? A namespace is just used to organize your code, right? So it's some sort of a container for classes and other namespaces. So we talk about a class. A class. A student is a class. Right? Okay. So now for this line, we're gonna talk about program. I see AI is already writing that for me, and we can do this and talk about static SAI static main string, and is then we can talk about how we grow that, and now we write the instruction. I'll just take this one. Okay, so let's explain a function. This is a function, this is a class, right? So if you check the difference between a class and an instruction, this is an instruction of what we're telling the computer to use, right? So I mean that you found the instruction under the class program, but where is the main method sitting? The main method is sitting under the class program, right? Okay, so that is the part. So a class is like a student. When you talk about a class, if you're gonna talk or rather explain what is a class, we have to first like just talk about object-oriented programming. So meaning that C# is considered as procedural programming, And what we mean about procedural programming, we talk about writing procedures or other method. So now this is a method to greet someone, right? So we're actually writing methods that performs operations on data. So while the object-oriented programming is actually about creating all these objects that contain both data and method. So there is a lot of theory about that. But one thing, the theory that I love about object-oriented is one thing: do not repeat yourself. They call it dry, most of the people. So this is a principle that is about reducing the repetition of code. So if you try by all means to not to repeat ourselves, so that is why we're doing it. So now, if you have a class or a two class that you believe they're going to share a method, what is the point of repeating the method instead of making the method to be a general method, rather to be a public method, right? If two classes have common factors, what do? We take out the common factor and put it outside so that all the classes inside, or rather all the individual, can benefit from, right? So that's what I wanted to actually talk about. That we have a class and we have now. I think we're going to talk about objects in a later stage, right? So I believe we explained the class, and we actually, I think we did not explain what is a method now in line 8. So when you talk about a method is a block of code, so only which you run when it's called. I love a method. I love a method because when we're going to be doing the Windows forms, right? When you talk about a method, so a method you can pass data known as parameters, right, into a method. So most of the methods are used to perform certain action. We can have a method to validate an ID number. We can have a method to check the age if it matches with the ID number you've provided. We can have a method that generates a gender based on your ID. So that is what we can use. But the most important thing is why use methods? Obviously, we use method to reduce code, to define the code once and use it multiple times. No need to rewrite all the codes, right? So I think enough with the theory. Um, yeah, so we'll be talking about different types of method as we're going further. Right. So, but now what just wanted to talk about, we talked about the syntax, we talked about comments. So we did not even talk about I believe, what can you talk about? A console, right? And write line. This is what you didn't talk about. So a console is a part of what? Systems, right? So console is a class of a system, right? So, and a write line now, this write line. So most, if you could check, another thing that I forgot to explain, all the methods have parentheses. A write line has a parenthesis. It's like a method is someone who just want to benefit. He just want you to give them something, then send them whatever. Yeah. So this method, this one, the write line, this one, it is used basically to output or print the text. So in our example here, we have hello world. If we run this, we expect the user to see the message inside the codes. Okay, so yeah, so I think we did talk about the case sensitivity, that C# is case sensitive, and that most of the people, they prefer, it's not wrong, but they prefer that when you name your class, you capitalize the first letter. So instead of program as small letter p, we just capitalize it, right? Okay, so what we can do here, I think we can call it, yeah, I think that is fine as well. I wanted to call it my class. Right? So instead of this, you can capitalize the letter M here. And call it like that, my class. You see, it did not detect anything wrong when I use the small letter M. So yeah, so let's run this one, and you will see it has to give us, oh yes, so this is what it gave us, hello world. You see, the user is not seeing the back end. The user is seeing what is inside the parenthesis. So it's very much important that we start with console before we go into a Windows application. Right, thank you. So now let us I think we can expand now. We can talk about others. I think we can talk about variable names, right? We talk about this. So let's talk about a variable name. Okay, so variable name is just a containers for storing data. So for instance, if I say age, if I can just say age. When I see age, I expect the age of have you seen a table? Have you seen a table? So a table has columns. The name of the columns are variable names. The name of the columns are variable names. So if you have your form to say, have you filled a form for university, filled a form to say enter a name. So those fields are just the containers of what sort of data that they need. But there's one thing that I want you to be aware of is why actually do we have different types of variables. For instance, now logically, you cannot store, if I ask you what is your age, you cannot write a string, right, and say 21. But one thing as programmers that we need to be sure and be considerate about is that the user might not know what data type you require for that field. For instance, will it be wrong for someone to enter 21? Will it be wrong for them to say it like this, to say I'm 21? So I mean that it is very much important to tell the user as soon as you get something that is not of what you required, to say, please, once they do errors, logically, when you ask someone the age, you'll say 21, and maybe they may write 19. But what if someone just decide to write 21? I mean that you need to have error-based. You need to tell them that as soon as you see characters, as soon as you see letters there, just throw out the error line message to say this field is only requiring whole numbers, right? Because age cannot be one double or other floating point numbers, right? So what we call talking about to say, if they're doing or rather if you're trying to give you what you don't want, print out the message. So I want us now to develop that while we're still there. So let's say again, using systems, I think now I'll be using all this. So namespace what? Namespace pro. How can we talk about this? Variables. And we can say our class is program. And now let's just talk about now here. So we say, let's write a program that asks the user to give you their name, to give you the age, and now must print out their age. Okay, get the age and print out the age. The main thing is to show you the most important about data types. So it is very much important for us to talk about how we use all those parts. So we have an integer, we have double, all of them they're dealing with numbers, right? Okay, so this is how we're going to be doing it. So the thing is, how do we declare now a database? How do we declare, sorry, how do we declare a variable name? So when we declare a variable name, we start with the, when we declare with a variable name, we start with the data type. A data type is int, double, string, bool, or character, right? Character is a single, it just requires a single thing. Okay, so what we can do now, let's just declare, because in our program we just want the age of the user, let's just declare age. Because we don't know the age, we can just put it like this, right? So let us see what we're getting here. Okay, it said the variable age is declared but never used. So now let us go to our program. So we just want to get the age and print it. So we have this line. console, right line, what is my age? Okay, what is your age? So we're going to allow the user to give us the age. For precision, I just want us to give us space here. Okay, so what is the age? User will enter the age. You say print line. Then what we're going to be doing here, let's put age. Oh, sorry. Okay, so now I'll just proceed. What we have here, this is where we'll print out the message, right? What is your age and that. So there's one thing about this line. We're just telling the user what is their age. Let's just run it. I want you to show you something. We have to close that. So just say, oh, what is actually happening? Oh, let's comment this line because there's error here. So this program will just be saying, what is your age? So meaning that the user will not have the capability of what? Of telling us their age. So we won't even know where to enter the age. So the moment you press any key, it will close. So there's also another function that goes with that. What we do is that we just say age is equals to console dot readline. Readline means that accept whatever the user gave us, right? So let's just put it like this. Use the one. So now it says read the next line of character from the standard, right? So let's just put this. I want to show you something. There was this suggestion that we got here as soon as we were writing this line, of which we're not going to talk about that now. There's something that I want to show you that I believe is going to help us a lot. You know, sometimes I just want to talk about AI a bit to say we're using more of AI, right? And but then we sometimes forget about the content. We sometimes forget about what is mostly important now, right? So what we can talk about now is about how do we then now deal with the logical sense of understanding what is programming, right? Instead of rushing to have all this thing, the most important thing I believe it is basic, the basic thing. So now as we're writing now like this, I like to read error messages, right? So that they can help us now to understand. Let's put it this way. You see this tagline. Now this tagline is actually explaining to us, is actually trying to they mean that there's AI about it. Someone will just press tab and just give them that. We need to also explain about typecasting. So now I won't be using it that. There's mostly importance of typecasting, right? So in that regard. Okay, so now let's just proceed. So let's just say since we've declared age to be what? To be an integer. So let's just read line. Okay. Again, I wanted us to evaluate this error. The next line of characters from input string, or if null or more lines. read the next line of characters. You see that? That reads the next line of character, meaning that whatever that we get from the user is considered a string. We have declared that to be what? To be an integer. But then when we're writing the correct syntax, it takes it out to say, but you cannot implicitly convert string to int. So hence, it was very much important to talk about how can we now solve this problem, because syntactically you're correct, but then logically behind that, it does not even make sense for us to do that. So other people would first want to accept it as a string and convert it laterwards. Do you understand what I'm talking about? So I'm not sure how we're gonna be doing it. Do we first accept as a string? But we don't have to change here. This has to stay like this. It has to stay. Mean that let us first now talk about conversion and it move out from there to talk about the most important thing of conversion, which is typecasting. So there's no type of for typecasting, but sometimes we have to, because now why would you even accept? Because everything that you enter now into a console is just taken as um I'd say what, yeah, everything that we accept from the user is taking it as a string. So now if we can let's do this. If we can uh typeface and console and read line, that let's see what will be a problem. There's no problem. So what we're explaining now is how do we convert. So the basic logical way of converting is that you mention the destination or the target data type, and you put you can say paste, which just actually means convert what the user input, which you can say a name here to say convert the name to this part. So the blue, it means that this is the target. Yeah, so now take it from this to this, take it from string, or rather convert from string to int. So I mean that we have solved that part, right? So meaning that let's try to run now and see what we can have now since we did not get the capability. So now we can enter the age, we can enter 21, we can enter any age. So let's enter 12. So now it close. It doesn't tell me anything, right? It doesn't tell me anything. So I think for good sense, we can just say thank you for using your services, or thank you for telling me this. So I mean that it is very much important for feedback. Give user feedback as soon as you got what you asked from them, right? So it mean that you can just have a line that console, um, thank you for your, yeah, could just suggest this part. Let's just do this part, which there's something that I also want to explain there. Now, there's this message. Thank you for sharing your age. You are 12 years old. Right? Perfect. So now let us explain this line. This line is quite different from line 11. When you look at line 11 and line 14, they are quite different. If you can notice, there are certain things there that is quite taking out. So now there is positive plus signs and age, right? So plus signs, we know them as addition, right? They still work that way, but there's something now, or rather a concept now in programming called concatenation. Concatenation is like joining, we're just trying to join the string with that. So the plus sign, if you remove one plus, it will crash. So when you're trying to concatenate the message with the variable name. So if you add this one, how it works, you just say have your message to say thank you, thank you for sharing your age, sorry, you are age. Don't forget the two plus sign that has to cover that. So if you have any additional here, we can have it here to say name is equals to kg. And now, okay, so thank you for sharing your name kg, meaning that we have to close this and put a plus and put a name and put a plus here and continue putting up a name. Okay, so it's just thank you for sharing your name plus, okay, you are, so the main thing is to not to write um, the actual name here, or rather the value inside this variable name, because we have different users, right? So mean that we are concatenating with the user input, but because we just manually wrote that, we can even ask the user to tell us their name, right, to further fix that. Mean that let's just fix this. And for a clean code, we can have this part. What is your name? And allow the user to tell us their name. So remember, when we accept the value from the user, it's taking it by default to be a string. So there's no need to convert anything now. So remove this value, the default value, and we're done. So now let us rerun that again. Okay, what is your name? My name is KG. My age is 12. And now, thank you for sharing your age, KG. You are 12 years old. Perfect. So now we're done with explaining that. So mean that we explain what is known as concatenation. We've explained user input. How do we get the value and how do we print out the value? But now we can even talk now about another thing, right? What we call, I believe is important, if else statement. If else, if else. Okay. So now, what happens when a user give us the input that we don't want? Because here we're talking about the data type. What happens when a user enters here enters a value that is not correct? So now please allow me now to take it to if statement, right? Or if else statement. Now we're going to talk about that again. So when you talk about C# conditions and if statement, um, we were talking about comparison, right? So we have, I'm sure you know that A is less than B. If we say less than B, right? We can either say yes, A is less than B, but for more precise sense, we can say A 10 is less than 20, 30, 20 is less than 30. Is it true or false? True. So what happens when the condition is true? Now, what happens when it's raining? Right? Is it going to rain tomorrow? Yes, it's going to rain. What are you going to do with that information? I'm just gonna wear warm. I have a raincoat that I'm gonna wear, so that's what I'm going to do. Okay. So what happened when it's not cold? I mean that I have to try to, take out my summer boarding yana there and there, just like that. Okay. So now let's start now explaining an if. If it's rainy tomorrow, I'm gonna wear a jacket. Generally, if you're gonna explain like that. If it's rainy tomorrow, you're gonna have a jacket. I'm wearing a jacket. And now what we talked about is that if a user on top of the age, if a user of a name enters numbers, you're gonna cut them out. So how do you block that? How do you block that? That if, for instance, if they try to enter, let me show you something like this that I wanted to talk about. What happens when a user leaves it blank? For instance, just leave it blank. What is your age? Leave it blank. Actually out, right? So I mean that the space could not convert. The reason why we're getting that error is that the space could not convert. Um, the space could not be converted to an integer. Okay. So what is your age? We just hit enter and just give us that. Let's enter the correct age. So just say, thank you for sharing your age. It does not mention the user's name. So let's just stop that by saying, right, if, what is our condition? What is our condition here? So our condition is that if name, I'm sorry. don't know, I can't see if sorry. A lot of people are doing this, so people are posting it like this. So if name is blank, so just give me that. Okay, so if name is blank, the condition is saying please enter your name. Else is AI. So if name is blank, just enter your name. So enter name. My name is whatever. After that, you can take it out. Right. So perfect. What we can do again here, she's supposed to add another to close it. Okay, so now what about the age? So maybe we can restrict it to say we need users from the age of what? Age of, if age is less than zero, to say enter valid age, right? Enter a valid number age. Okay, so now what if the age is obviously 2 years? We allow the person to, so you don't want a deity that, right? So mean that you can even add another condition here to say if age is less than 15, 18. So you can say that you are a minor or just say you are not allowed to register, right? So we're just trying to play around with if statement. You can try it. Maybe you're thinking that what can we talk about now? What if the name is numeric, right? Do we have a function for name is numeric? Let's see if we do have it here. If name dot is let's see. Oh, sorry. Do we have is numeric? So the main thing is to check if the age is numeric enough. But you can try it in most cases to say if age is numeric. No. Or typecast this line. Or I'm just saying try to play around with if statements, right? So you can have other if statements further and further. So I'm explaining this if statement, touching based on them because we'll be using them most of the time. So instead now here we have what is known as if else. If else mean that the opposite of this condition is what is true, right? So if we have if else to say if it's raining tomorrow, wear a jacket. But what if it's not rainy, right? So just wear normal. Just what we're trying to do about. So we can try also put in some if else statement and see how we can go about doing it. So else, just to put it or play around that, you're an adult. I need to be told them that if their age is less than 18, tell them that they are minor. But then if they're above 18, tell them that they're adult, right? Okay, no problem. So let's try to run this program and see how we're gonna get all these things. My name is KG. All that I just print KG. That is my name, age 12. So you see, it gave me you're a minor, but thank you for your age KG. You're 12 years old. Perfect. So I mean that you need to know how to play around if else statement. So if you want to loop around things, so what happens when, for instance, if you can rerun this program, if you can rerun, so if a user enters space, right, you see it does not even tell us that. So meaning that the positioning of your condition is very important. Meaning that take this one and put it here so that it detects immediately before asking the user the next question, right? So let us see what it can give us. Blank. You say, please enter a name. But now it keeps on saying, what is your age? It does not stop the user. So what most of the people do, they say, do what? Exit. Um, okay, so what we're going to be doing here, when I say exit, all right, our zero here. So what we want here basically is that we need to use a class. There's a class called environment. I know we have a lot of people that are using it differently or that have their ways of closing or exiting. This is just to say um, environment exit. I think we'll need capital letter E here. Yeah, so the zero just means exit the program with the status code zero. So status code zero just means success, right? So let's just see what that means. When we run this part, if I press enter, it closes. It stops asking the user to enter the age now out. So I think this will allow me to also talk about um, if condition, I mean loops, right? How can we now wrap up everything under a loop, of which in the process where I'm going, I don't want to talk about loops, right? Because we won't be using loops that much. So I would rather stick more on switch, right? Or rather break, continue. So that's what I believe we can write. So again, there's two way here. Let's just talk about this break. So this break, I want you to put it more. Sorry, small b. Break. I want you to like to put it like to quite understand how this break works. So let's do this. So break is one way of terminating the program, right? So if you want to terminate the program, most of the people they use break, especially those that are used with a repetition. When you're doing repetition, you can use break. So I mean that this one, if you can see it also as well, it says no enclosing loop out of which to break or continue. So that's why I said, please let us focus on the error message. So no enclosing loop out of which to break or to continue. So if we have a continuous programs, then we can use break or other continue. Okay, so don't use that. We're gonna use this part. Hence, I just wanted to understand it because I know people know break. So right. So I think now in the next video we will talk about methods and classes. So this is just a hell of more theoretical, busted with everything that I believe if we can practice, then we can go a long way. It's just some sort of basic syntax. How do we see if it's something is an instruction? How do we see if it's a method, is a class? A method must have, when you're gonna talk in the next video, what a class must have. But now what I wanted us to focus on, because at the end of this whole channel, we'll be building our own desktop application. We don't know what desktop application we're gonna build, but we're gonna build it alongside with databases and all that part, right? So no problem. I think I'm gonna meet into the next video where I will combine lessons for methods and classes. As soon as we're done, I think we can now, or rather, we'll be venturing out into desktop application. Okay, so again, if you don't understand anything that I just said about if else, typecasting, data type, variables, comments, syntax, output, just comment down into the section and I believe I'll just answer you instantly when I see your message. But now the reason why I'm not doing for loops is that I think we'll be building more of the programs, right? So I just don't want to touch base on while loop or for loop. So what we can talk about, I think now it's the switch, the difference between switch and if statement, or rather else if statement. So I think if you can do it into the next video, or we can do it now. Okay, so I think to explain it, I'm trying to see if we can, don't want to make the video long. Yeah, just make a video at least in 60 minutes, that will do. Okay, so I want us to now to do, let's erase all of this part so that we can explain what what do we mean when you talk about if else. So when you talk about if else, or the else if, okay, so the else if statement is actually happening when we have more than one condition, right? Or more than two conditions. So mean that we write this, what is the condition, condition one, condition two, and just want to type the syntax. And so here is else. Just type else if. But here, remember, it has, yeah, sorry, else if. Now here we also have else. So I want you to see the difference here. So now the if statement here have a condition. And sometimes we can talk about weather. Sometimes it may be cloudy and be a little bit too hot. Okay. So if the condition one is true, then there is no need for the program to check these guys, right? There is no way all these conditions can be true. There is no way. I mean that if we talk about gender, so if the person is male, tell the person to say molo ndoda or hello ndoda or just say hi, hi my son, or anything that talks or related to them. If you talk about if else, now be that if it's not a male, it's a female. Now here else will be others, right? So it's male, female, others, right? So you can just comment or rather say prefer not to say. Here we can say female, and here we can say male. So we'll be using them mostly into the program, but I just wanted to touch base on that. So not all this condition cannot be true. If it's not Monday, it's Tuesday. If it's not Tuesday, it's Wednesday. Right. Okay. So there's no other. So it's not Monday, yeah, then it's another day tomorrow. It cannot be Z Sunday. It's just Sunday. So we don't have any other eight value of the week. Okay, so it's just one, two, three. So that's how we explain if statement, right? Okay. So now I want us to talk about a switch. Okay. So a switch statement is more like I would say an advanced of if statement. So a switch statement it's also used to select one of many code to be executed. Right. So now if we talk about switch, switch just written like this, just say switch, then now the expression, not the condition, just the expression, right? So we write the expression. Now the difference there, here, you're gonna be writing the expression, right? The expression is just saying, I don't know how, what example can we talk about? Um, Okay, let's just say I don't know what I don't know what you can talk about, but more of expression, right? So let us do this, and now we have a case. Case is the value, right? Case one, case two, right? So, but then in our case, we have gonna write the value male. Remember on this part, we're checking the gender. So I mean that here we can say, now the next one here, case what? Female, okay, case prefer not to say. Oh, that is case three. Okay, so now we'll be writing one thing now. See, so if you can now write it in the simple program, here we have our variable name that contains the data, which is going to be gender, right? So if you can have now to say string gender is equals to male. So gender is equals to male. So now switch expression. This is the gender, right? So now here we're entering the variable name we want to check here. Okay. Okay. So now Monday we can say if now the value matches, right? So I'm not sure if in this example you would understand, but then now the why we have the cases like that. So it's the first if on line 12, the second if line 15, that and the else part is the ending part, right? So I think we could put it in that way to say console right line, you're a male, so female, you're a female, you prefer not to say your gender. That is quite fine, right? So that is why most of the time you're using it. Okay, so if this order has this address, so we have this order that has the address. We have the order, so someone ordered a laptop from Takealot or out of from Amazon. So now the order is supposed to go to Johannesburg, but this person is in Bloemfontein, this person is in let's say this person is in any other place, Limpopo. So, but then when you look at this program, this part will match only with this, meaning that the only statement that will be executed is this. Now look at that break. It came back because now there's a repetition. We need to check. The program must keep on going. So if you want to, in your case, check your gender, if you want to check your day, if the day if a user say day is 4 and then you're supposed to print Thursday, then that is fine, right? So yeah, so that is what the essence of that. Another example is about this. Let's talk about now. Allow the user to give us the day and we tell them what is the day. So if a user, for instance, if day is 4, then we're gonna write a switch day in case will be if the user gave us one, we're gonna write what? Monday. Now, but what if the case is two? We're gonna write what? Tuesday. And let's write Tuesday. Same applies. If it's four, what are we going to write? 3. And we can bring this one back. Yes, and remember not to forget to break. It's very important so that the program can goes out of the switch case. So case 4 and console the right line Thursday. So if a user enters 4, we're going to tell them that it's Thursday. So let's run this program and see what are we going to be getting. So we did not even allow the user to give us the day, right? We just give their default value. So four, it means, so it's day four. If it's day four, it means it's Thursday. Even if you put one, it's going to be Monday and Tuesday till seventh day, Sunday, right? So that I'll put that. So that is how the switch case. The most important thing is not to forget the break, right? So the break, so that please do not forget the break. But now there is something that we forgot to talk about, which is known as the default. So default now, if we're going to explain that, now here we have to most of the time write I would say an error message, not a valid day number, right? If a user enters 8, or I'll just say write a concise and unambiguous word like um, the days end up to 7, right? So that is very much important, right? So in this scenario, okay, or maybe you can write what, for instance, so the default is just working like if the value does not exist, right? You say looking forward. I mean, if the user enters something that does not exist, you can just say what, not the day, not the day number, or rather just saying looking forward to the weekend. Looking forward to the weekend. Close this part and we're done, and we can break it here. Okay, so let's see. Let us enter 5 and see what we're going to get. So it's say looking forward. So it actually talks about error, not necessarily error, but if the value, if you don't have the value, then yeah, this is how what actually we're talking about. Now it's saying Thursday because the value that you gave us now exists. Like you know how it works. It works with login. So if the user details are not there into the database, we say invalid password or email address, invalid username or password. So I believe that was what we can grasp from there. If we can practice now other exercises, then we can go well. So now, thanks so much. I think the next slide we're going to be talking about introduction to methods and classes and combine them too. Yeah, I think now we just talked about basic formats, right, in that scenario. So I just wanted to explain from this to next. The lesson 3, we'll be talking now about um, planning the application, introduction to desktop application and Windows. So yeah, so in this video, I hope you guys did enjoy and everyone now can now understand before, so that when you go to more of coding, we can understand. Thank you so much.